Tēnā koutou katoa, we are Kate McKayser-Moo and Sam Mackle from the National Centre of Religious Studies.
This is an introductory video to support your planning and teaching for years 5 and 6s in Phase of Learning 2, the Good News Te Rongopai theme.
The focus for Te Rongopai for our year 5 and 6 children is stories Jesus knew, and the focus question is, how do ancient stories show me how to live? Ngā kaupapa provides experiences for the children to understand the basic context of the Old Testament and that Jews, Muslims and Christians share these stories, and to learn key stories from the Old Testament which teach us how to be good in relationships. The visual overview gives you a place where all the resources for the pack can be found easily in a visual way. All the documents are linked here, and at the end you can find other useful links, such as the Learning Pack overview for the whole phase of learning, any prayer resources, all the links we've used within the whole theme, our website, and the PL2 YouTube playlist.
Throughout our PL2 resources, we are incorporating Kahoot quizzes as well as digital games on WordWall as a fun way to consolidate the knowledge along the way.
As you know, we have whānau connection pages just like these that can be sent home as interactive digital or paper resources for families to engage with some of the ideas the children are learning at school.
Here's just a gentle reminder about how our coding works. AOs and allies are now found in packs. In this example, the coding reads PL2 for Phase of Learning 2, _3, which is Theme 3, our story, point 3 for Learning Pack 3, and B is for the pack being found in Set B. You can see that the coding is found on the background notes, the overview, the suggested learning sequence, and all resources, so they're all in one place and easy to find.
Set B is titled The Old Testament Getting to Know Ourselves. It contains 4 learning packs: God Calls Everyone, Stories of Wisdom and Courage, Wahine of Wisdom and Courage, Stories We Share, and Praying the Psalms. Learning Pack 1 is titled God Calls Everyone. This is another big learning pack in terms of how many allies are covered, but again, most of the allies are taught through the stories rather than independently. So the same ideas such as what life was like for people in Old Testament times, and that the stories from the Old Testament teach us about God's relationship with people, are being revisited and reconsolidated many times. This pack has a few different aspects that need to be explored. The first is that God calls everyone. It is the whole idea of God loving us all and believing that each of us are capable of carrying out our call in building the kingdom of God, whatever that call might be. We want the children to feel the important truth that they are loved and are called here and now by God, just as they are, and that through this love they can do many things and grow to be the people they are destined to be. So this first PowerPoint brings this idea to the forefront of the children's minds and looks at times we have the opportunity to hear and respond to God's call. Following on from this is an activity for the children to start thinking generally about the wonderful things that are happening and have happened in the world because of people answering God's call, so they can start to make this connection. The next aspect of this learning is going into limitations, and we have another PowerPoint presentation where we explore what some limitations are that stop us from answering God's call, many of these coming from within. The children are given some real life scenarios and are given the opportunity to reflect on and discuss limiting thoughts compared to thoughts that will help them in hearing God and answering God's call. Next, the children unpack 3 stories from the Old Testament, the stories of Jonah, Jeremiah, and David. There are a series of digital books, the PowerPoint presentations again, and printable follow-up pages for these stories. These resources give the children opportunities to reflect again on what life was like in Old Testament times, how the stories from the Old Testament teach us about what God is like, about God's relationship with people, and that they call us to live in a special way in our lives today. They also look and think about limitations holding people back in these stories. So we start with an activity that they have done before, an activity which shows them that they cannot possibly hear messages when there is too much noise and they aren't paying attention, that they need to stop and purposefully plan on how they can do this in their lives in between school, home life, friendships, family relationships, after school activities, and the ever important device time. We want to help them see that this is just as important and cup filling as they may see all of these other things. Once they have done that and revisited the importance of this, they will spend a few sessions coming in and out of reflection, prayer, and conversation as they complete a fold out resource. This resource will take the children on a journey of discovery. It is split into 4 parts so they can identify, pray about, and reflect on the different aspects before filling out each part of the sheet. The focuses are on the following: where and when they feel they best hear God, and deciding where and when they will start to do this in their lives if they aren't already, what some of the things may be that they are called to do, what some of their limitations are, and how they can overcome these limitations, which is really important. We want to give the children quality time and space here so that they can really see the benefit of this. We know that this is important for our children's spiritual journey as well as for their whole order. Being able to stop and be still is something that could really help them throughout their lives on many levels. There are resources provided to support reflection, such as a guided meditation, script, and some beautiful music. And then you have the option of supporting the children in writing a letter to themselves, either from themselves or from God. Finally, to complete this learning, we go into the final aspect, which is overcoming limitations. The children will have already reflected on this. There are some ideas of possible self-portrait art you can see here, with the idea that children add a large speech bubble with one positive thought they can have when they're struggling to answer God's call. Display these in your classroom, pointing out to the children that they can use these as a resource at any time to remind them that through God's love, they can overcome any limitation. Learning Pack 2 is titled Stories of Wisdom and Courage, Wahine of Wisdom and Courage. The children will again be learning about what life was like in Old Testament times, that stories from the Old Testament have lessons to teach us here today, and about God and God's relationship with people. Through this learning pack, they come into these ideas with a lens of courage and wisdom. The focus here is wahine from the Old Testament who show this courage and wisdom. There are more than 600 women referred to in the Bible, but they make up less than 15% of the named characters. Women in the Bible are often on the fringes of society. They are barren, prostitutes, foreign, ill, etc. And their stories often include grim moments of violence. Women in the Bible are often portrayed as unworthy or manipulative, even if they do what they do for good reasons. However, there are also stories of women who are clever, wise, and courageous. Wisdom herself is portrayed as a woman in Proverbs. Most of our children know about Eve and the Garden of Eden and Mary, the mother of Jesus, but they hear little about other women in the Bible. So, this pack is a perfect chance to right that wrong, to give tamariki the opportunity to reflect on some strong wahine from the Bible and the life lessons they teach us. As always, we begin with connecting to prior learning. Of course, wisdom and courage are 2 of the gifts of the Holy Spirit, so the children have learnt about these in years 3 and 4. You can revisit any of that learning to fill gaps or remind children of the foundation they built through this previous learning. We then have an oral language activity where the children choose a quote based around wisdom, courage, or both with a partner. Once they have shared their thoughts, the children can make digital posters to share the quote. After a quick recap on Old Testament times and discussing women in the Bible, we dive into the stories. We have provided resources for 5 stories here, but as the AO states, you only need to cover 3. We suggest you use Esther and 2 others. For 4 of the stories, we have provided a story version, which is based off the planner from the wonderful website Free Bible Images, just like in set A. We have again made these into read aloud YouTube clips. These stories are read by beautiful, real Kiwi kids, so they may not be perfect always, but we hope they provide some support for less confident readers. We are aware that there is a lot of reading required in this theme, so we want to make the stories as accessible to as many children as possible. If you do prefer not having the children read along on the YouTube clip, a digital book for the children to read themselves or have you read to them is available. Again, each of these 5 stories come with the interactive PowerPoint unpacking the different aspects, which you can see here. We also provide biblical text versions for all the stories, and we really encourage you to support the children in engaging with these texts. It's really important that these stories aren't just given to the children as independent activities. Each story comes with its own rich context and its own life lessons. So we recommend discussing these with the children and reading the story as a whole class or in groups before they read it or listen to it again independently and complete the follow-up activities. The follow up activities are specific to a certain lesson within each story, and these also need to be unpacked with the children before they do them. So, here are the resources for each of the stories of this pack. The digital book, the audio book, the PowerPoint are all linked in the follow up page for the children to access after you have looked at them together. The activity page has questions for each story, QR codes, and the activity, which covers Ally 3, recognizing when we need courage and wisdom to respond to God's call, which is taken from one of the lessons within each story. With the story of Ruth, Ruth shows wisdom and courage by staying with Naomi when it would have been easier for her to go home to her own family. So, this is a lesson the children can think about. This is a chance to talk about things that often people avoid, times when parents are separating, someone is in trouble with the law, someone has found out that they are terminally ill. These times take great courage and wisdom to get through for the people going through it, but also for the support people. It can be easy for us to step away and let people deal with these horrible situations without us, but God calls us to step in instead. Many children of this age love YouTube, so they pretend in this activity that they have a YouTube channel that gives advice to people their age, and they plan and record a video giving people advice around this. We would love to see any of these that your children create, so please send any in to us if you have a chance. The story of Naaman's unnamed slave girl reminds us that help can come from very unexpected places. God sends us help in ways we often don't think about or see. So here is an opportunity for the children to reflect on this and write a story showing this life lesson. A big wondering from this story is around why the girl told Naaman about Elisha. Why did she want a man who was her owner to be healed? Maybe it was to help him see God so his heart could be softened and the war against her people would end. The children think about this and they write a letter home as the little girl explaining the reasons for doing what she did. Most of the children will know about Moses being left in a basket by his mother in the hopes of saving his life, but wouldn't have thought about the midwives who risked their own lives to save the baby boys, or Moses' big sister who made sure he was cared for. They wouldn't have reflected on how Pharaoh, the powerful leader, was demanding all baby boys be killed, but how these courageous wahine wouldn't do it. They knew it wasn't right. Through the story of the midwives and the big sister, they do just that. The follow-up activity is around something that is really important for children of this group: peer pressure. The children think about times when they are encouraged by friends to do things they know are wrong, and they pray through writing a letter to God to help them be brave and courageous when this happens to them. The story of a wise king and a wise mother gives the children an opportunity to think about how we can be empathetic towards people who are behaving badly. Quite often, it is those people who need extra love. Esther is a really long story, but a really important one, so we hope you can take the time to explore it and its many lessons with the children. The follow up activity requires the children to look at different scenarios and see how they can react to them. This is a good time to reconnect the children with see, judge, act. The children think about how they can let emotion take over, as I'm sure Esther would have felt the urge to do, knowing her people were going to be killed. Or they can stop, they can think about how they can use wisdom in the situations, and, like Esther, take time to pray, reflect, and talk to people who can help before taking action that can actually make a difference. We hope that these stories open doors to having more of those deep, inspiring conversations and prayer time in your classrooms, and that the children hold on to these conversations and thoughts to help them in their lives here, now, and in the future. We finish the learning with prayer and have a lovely prayer around wisdom from Saint Benedict. Learning Pack 3 is titled Stories We Share. The children will be learning that Jewish people are the people of God in the Old Testament, that the Old Testament is the story of the Jewish people, and that Christian and Muslim people value the stories of the Jewish people. This pack is all about building knowledge in order to build relationship. It is about recognizing similarities between our Old Testament stories and the characters and stories from the sacred texts of Muslim and Jewish people, while recognizing that differences are okay too, and that it's really important to respect differences in our world, something we really need to instill in our future leaders. We start the pack with a quick warm up to remind the children that there are many religions in the world, before focusing in on Christianity, Islam, and Judaism. The children learn that these three religions are a connected family of faiths and are often called the Abrahamic faiths. There is an activity where the children in pairs recall symbols and traditions that are unique to the Catholic faith. They will have learnt many of these by now, so hopefully they can do this with a partner. The partners then split off, and the class becomes two new groups, one group exploring Judaism and answering the questions, and the other group doing the same for Islam. We have used the BBC website as links for this activity. We love using our course, so the children are then given the opportunity to learn from and teach each other, coming back to their original pairs and completing their sheet together. We have a selection of journal story options here and YouTube clips that you can use as part of your literacy program, as independent activity options, as clips or stories to watch or read to the class after lunch, or just to keep in your library corner to keep building the children's interests and understanding around Judaism and Islam. The learning next takes us into exploring the ideas that the Jewish people are the people of God in the Old Testament, and Christian and Muslim people value the stories of Jewish people. We have a YouTube clip with a recording page for the children to write down important information, followed by a 60-second challenge. Next, the children focus on Islam and the sacred text of Muslims, the Quran. There is another short clip which is followed by a time of discussion. The children have time to look into some of the characters from stories they have been learning about in previous learning packs within this theme: Cain and Abel, David and Goliath, Jonah, Miriam, and Moses. There is a printable page for each of the characters with space for the children to write the version that they know on the left and the version from the Quran on the right. You can run this however you like, depending on the time you have, but once the children have had time to go into at least one of the characters, it's really important to come back together and unpack the ideas from the background notes about similarities and differences. Finally, to finish off, we have 2 printable or digital display posters with beautiful quotes from the Quran. The children are invited to choose one of these quotes or choose another to make their own poster to go on display. The aim here is to end up with a range of quotes from the Old Testament, the New Testament, and the Quran that connect with how God wants us to treat others, so the children can see that the general message of all of these 3 faiths is very similar, one of love.
Learning Pack 4 is titled Praying the Psalms. This pack is found in both sets A and B, with set B building on set A. The children will be learning to recognise that prayers can come in the form of poetry and song, to identify what psalms were for, and to create a psalm of my own to use in my own prayer and to share with others. Again, LI 4 from AO1 is naturally integrated, which is what was life like for people in Old Testament times. The emphasis on this learning is how both poetry and song can be beautiful ways to communicate feelings and thoughts with God. We revisit learning from Set A with a YouTube clip and a PowerPoint presentation that unpacks some of the history of Psalms, what they might have been used for, and how they are structured. This is an opportunity for young people to understand the role that the Psalms had in the past and why they considered prayer and important in the church's tradition. We break down how there are roughly 6 categories of Psalms and identify what these are. There is a fun Kahoot and a printable follow-up page to help consolidate this learning. Over Set A and Set B, we look at 8 Psalms that focus on different themes or ideas. There were 4 in Set A and again 4 in Set B. It is recommended you choose 3 of the 4 Psalms to cover in each set. Versions of each Psalm have been provided. They have been carefully created to suit the age group while retaining the original meaning. In Set B, we explore Psalm 1, Psalm 8, Psalm 137, and Psalm 139. As with Set A, there is a similar way in which the resources are structured. Each psalm has a PDF version in colour and in black and white should children want to decorate it. There is a YouTube clip with Kiwi kids reading the psalm, so they may not always be perfect, but we hope they provide some support for less confident readers. If you prefer not having the children read along to the YouTube clip, the posters are easily printed instead. After reading and listening to the psalm, you will then explore the message's context and meaning behind it with a PowerPoint. The idea is to work through this resource and then complete the follow-up printable page for each psalm that you explore. Each follow-up page can be done in a variety of ways. You could do it in pairs, small groups, or an individual activity. For Psalm 8, there is a fun Kahoot instead, just to change things up a little bit. For each psalm with the children, you will want to ask, discuss, or explore ideas such as, what does it say about the times of the writer? What do they think the overall meaning or message is? What was this psalm used for, and when might it be used now? And the big one, how is God imagined in this psalm? After exploring each psalm, there is a reflective PowerPoint to work through as a prayer component of this pack. Young people can reflect on words or phrases that they resonated with, how different psalms can help us when we face challenges or difficult decisions in life. There are no right or wrong answers, and you may like to keep this as a silent reflection time instead of discussing these personal questions as a class. We then go into creating our own psalms. A point of difference from Set A is that they are now focusing on a psalm of praise or forgiveness, which adds depth to their sorry or thank you prayers from Set A. Children pull ideas they explored throughout the pack to create their own psalm, and if time allows, to present these in a new and creative way.
Just as we always say, there are many resources and lots of learning to explore in this theme. We are really excited to see what you come up with and where you take this learning. Please always feel free to get in touch with the team as we journey together. God bless you, your families, and your communities as you carry out your important ministry. Thank you for all you do on behalf of myself, Kate, Sam, and the NCRS team. Mā te wā.